Let's visit the 90s all over again. Put on those hammer pants. This is Dope Nostalgia.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 270 of Dope Nostalgia. I'm Naomi, your host. Today is an episode about an artist that I knew absolutely nothing about. Nothing. But the cool thing was I wanted to do a podcast with Justin of Pop Culture Reflections podcast. Longtime supporter of Dope Nostalgia and has an excellent show. Really nostalgic, really cool. About movies, music, TV, pro wrestling, all of the topics you can think of. And I went to him and I said, hey, pick an artist. And he picked Elliott Smith. So that's the cool thing is I'm learning something today, which is always exciting. We're going to learn together. So we're going to start with a little bit of background information on Elliott Smith. Wikipedia moment.
Please bear in mind that Wikipedia can be edited by anyone at any time. If I'm reading you the artist's bio, then you know it's information straight from the source.
So here are some details about Elliott Smith, and this is coming from his official Facebook page. The Wikipedia was very, very long and very, very detailed, so I figured this would be the best way to give you the info. Elliott Smith was born Stephen Paul Smith in Omaha, Nebraska on August 6, 1969. His father, Gary Smith, was in medical school at the University of Nebraska, and his mother, Bunny, was an elementary school teacher. When Elliott was 1 year old, his parents divorced, and he moved with his mother to Dallas, Texas. That same year, his father was drafted, assigned to the U.S. Air Force, and sent to the Philippines as a physician. By the time Elliott was 5, both his father and mother had remarried, and his father and stepmother moved to Portland, Oregon. From the ages of 4 to 13, Elliott lived with his mother, stepfather, and 2 half-siblings in Duncanville, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. At 14, Elliott moved to Portland, Oregon to live with his father, stepmother, and 2 half-sisters. Elliott started to write and record songs at home in Portland on a 4-track recorder. He attended Lincoln High School and graduated in 1987 as a National Merit finalist. While in high school, he formed his first band, Stranger Than Fiction. Elliott attended Hampshire College in Massachusetts and graduated in 1991 with a major in political philosophy. He then moved back to Portland and formed the band Heat Miser, along with Neil Gust, his friend and fellow musician from Hampshire College. Elliott released his first solo album, Roman Candle, parentheses, cavity search, parentheses, in 1994. He followed with the self-titled Elliott Smith in 95 and Either Or in 97, both issued on the independent label Kill Rock Stars. He also recorded 3 albums with Heat Miser in the early 90s, Dead Air, Cop and Speeder, and Mike City Sons. In 1997, director and Portland resident Gus Van Sant used some of his songs in the film Good Will Hunting. Van Sant had been a friend and fan of Smith since hearing Roman Candle. One of those, Miss Misery, went on to earn an Academy Award nomination for Best Song in a Motion Picture. Elliott performed Miss Misery on the Academy Awards on March 23, 1998. Elliott signed a contract with DreamWorks Records in 98 and quickly released XO, his 4th studio album. Or solo album. Sorry about that. That same year, his cover of the Beatles' Because was the end credit song for the Academy Award-winning film American Beauty. In 2000, Smith released his 5th solo album, Figure 8, to much critical acclaim. After the release of Figure 8 and subsequent touring in support of the record, Smith concentrated on writing and reworking more songs, many of which made up from A Basement on the Hill, which was released posthumously on Anti Records in October of 2004. Before his death on October 21st, 2003, Elliott had realized his longtime dream of building his own recording studio, New Monkey, located in Van Nuys, California. Kill Rock Stars released New Moon in May 2007. New Moon is a double CD collection of 24 songs recorded from 94 to 97 during the period of the release of the self-titled album and Either Or. KRS also reissued both Roman Candle and From a Basement on the Hill in April 2010, placing all of Elliott's independent catalog onto one label. Joining me today from the podcast Pop Culture Reflections, welcome Justin to the show to talk about Elliott Smith. Welcome, Justin, from Pop Culture Reflections podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Excellent. Excellent.
Good.
So you've always been so kind to me on social media. You're always sharing my posts and such. And I'm like, hey, this guy's awesome. I got to have you on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always been important to me because I believe in the community, you know, us podcasters, those of us that are also big into, you know, pop culture from the 80s and the 90s. And, you know, we like a lot of the same things. So it's really cool to me to see content creators out there doing that stuff. So I try to do my best to promote as much as I can for the shows that I enjoy.
Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate that. Now, how long have you been doing the show now?
So I started it originally under a different name and concept back in late 2021. I got, I want to say about 10 episodes in, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't really feel that motivated because I wasn't part of a network. I wasn't part of a community. I didn't feel like I was getting a lot of plays or, you know, streams or getting much attention. So like I got frustrated and I kind of gave up, and I thought that was the end of my podcast journey. And then in September of 2023 is when I relaunched under this current name, kind of a similar concept to what I'm doing now, but it was just me talking into a microphone, no guest or anything. And, but I became part of a network. So it kept me motivated and focused and gave me a reason to want to keep pushing forward. And I did that. And eventually in mid 2024, I brought on my first guest. And since then it's kind of evolved into, you know, conversations about all things pop culture.
It's so much more fun doing it with a guest.
100%.
So much more. And you have a lot of regular guests that come on the show too, right?
I do. Yeah. It's funny. At first, I just tried to find people that would be interested in coming on, that like-minded people, you know, stuff like that, movie fans and pop culture fans and even some pro wrestling fans, because that's part of my show. And it was really cool. And then all of a sudden, it's like we had such a great time talking. I wanted to bring them back. So there's been a lot of repeat. I've had a lot of new guests come on as well. So it's been quite the journey.
Oh, that's exciting. And we'll make sure we got to tell everybody about your show, as well as, do you have an audio trailer for your show?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. It
Okay.
hasn't been updated in a while. I really should, because the show's evolved so much that it's probably outdated at this point, but I do. Yeah.
Okay. I want it. I'm going to add it to my rotation.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's been a favorite episode for you? Or memorable one?
Yeah, it's tough, but I probably can point to 2025 as probably the highlight, because I think I really fully realized what the show was and where it was going last year. So probably the one that stands out the most for me, being a big music fan, is I got to interview an independent band out of Tennessee. Their name is Boozy. I've been following them for a little while, and I've really fallen in love with this band. And I just took my chance. I shot my shot, right? And I messaged them because we followed each other on Instagram. So again, I took my shot. I sent them a message, wanted to gauge their interest in maybe coming on and talking about the band. They accepted. I was blown away. They came on. I had what I felt was a great interview, and probably, like I said, I had a lot of great stuff last year, but I think that was probably the highlight for me, to actually get to that point where I was interviewing a band, and that was really cool for me.
Oh, it's super fun. Once you start, it's addictive.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You know all about that. So it was something I didn't know if I would ever get to that point. To actually do it was surreal. And yeah, you're right. It's addictive. I can't wait. I've actually interviewed another artist recently, and that's going to be coming up in a couple weeks. So yeah, it's there, and I'm loving it.
I want to apologize for the show happening behind me here. Not really, because I think it's cute, but
it is cute.
My two cats are playing right behind on this audio podcast where no one can see this. This might have to be a clip.
I hope so. It's awesome.
Now, the artist we're going to talk about today is one that I am ashamed to say I did not know. And you suggested him, and I'm like, yeah, that's wonderful. I want to be educated. Elliott Smith.
Mhm.
How did you discover Elliott Smith, and what appealed to you the most about him?
Yeah, so Stephen Paul Smith, what his name that when at birth, his given name, but eventually he would become Elliott Smith. And so I, like you, in the early to mid 90s, again big into the 90s music at that time as a teenager. Elliott Smith was totally off my radar until I saw the film Good Will Hunting in 1997. So Good Will Hunting, if you listen to it and check out the soundtrack, Elliott Smith's all over it. So that was my formal introduction to Elliott Smith. And he kind of brought to mind, I'll give you an example of a movie, Harold and Maude, where like Cat Stevens is all over that soundtrack.
Mm.
Elliott kind of brought up like feelings that I had of early Cat Stevens. Not exactly, they're different artists, but it brought to mind that. So I was intrigued. I was very intrigued, but Elliott Smith is not a name that you instantly go to from the 90s. He was a much smaller artist. And what happened is, after I heard him on Good Will Hunting, there was a big song that came out from that soundtrack that was an original song on there, which was Miss Misery. And he actually got an Oscar nomination for that song. So that kind of put him on the map a little. But it was like, it's funny, it was that little blip, and then he kind of fell off the radar again for most people during that decade. But I was already entrenched in this with his involvement in the movie and the soundtrack. So there was a college radio station that at times I would listen to just to see if I could discover new artists. And I remember right around the time that I saw the film, Elliott had played on that college radio station, and I'm like, oh shit, this is that artist. I'm so down. So I went to my local music store, record store, whatever it was at that time. I don't even remember what it was called, but I had to seek out more Elliott Smith. I bought a couple CDs, went home, and just, for lack of a better term, just binged those. I know people say that when it comes to movies, but I just listened to those things on repeat because I was just so into his sound and his voice. And obviously we'll probably talk about that more, but yeah, that's kind of like where it started for me was 97 Good Will Hunting, and the rest is history.
As a person who's hearing about him for the first time and just got a brief glimpse, almost skimming over his history, I did watch some YouTube videos about documentaries, basically, and I watched his Oscars performance. Is his music uplifting or is it depressing? Because some people, I feel like there's camps on both sides of that.
I agree 100%. And it's funny when you describe that. I think about when I listen to Elliott Smith, and whether it be my wife, whether it be my daughter, whether it be friends, whatever it is, a lot of the same sentiment from most people is, how can you listen to this? It's very depressing. It's, it gets me down. It puts me in a bad mood, or whatever it might be. But having said all that, there's something about Elliott's soft, haunting vocals and the songwriting that appeal to me, right? And I will describe it like this. Like, to me, he was like this raw nerve, an open wound, right? And his emotions are all over his work, in the lyrics, in his vocal style. The music is very moody, I would say. The vocal style is very quiet and subdued. It's very conflicted, but at the same time, very powerful if you really listen to what he's saying. And I think almost like his softness makes you listen a little closer. And let's put it this way. Am I always in the mood to listen to Elliott Smith? No. Okay. I'm not. Let's be real, right? So to answer your question, I think it can be uplifting, but I could see where it could be a little depressing as well. I definitely have to be in a certain mood to listen to Elliott Smith. But having said all that, sometimes I could be in a great mood and want to listen to Elliott Smith. And maybe that'll contrast what's going on in my life. Or maybe, it might sound corny to say this, but I'll put it this way. I don't always go to Elliott when I'm down. I do sometimes when I'm down, but a lot of times I kind of go to him more when I feel good. And it might sound corny, but it's almost like I want to visit my old friend, right? The artist, the artist that I met when I was a teenager, who spoke to me for a variety of reasons, through the angst, through the stuff I was dealing with, in high school and all that stuff, right? Spoke to me then. So it's almost like for a little while I get to have him next to me again. So from that perspective, I don't expect everybody to relate when they listen to his music, but that's kind of what it means to me. So in a lot of ways, it is uplifting to me.
I think that's a wonderful explanation. I find that people tend to listen to music, some for just for the music speaks to them, some it's the lyrics, and sometimes it's both. But I'm one of those people who's more about the music side of things, but I do take in lyrics. It's an afterthought for me sometimes.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
He seems like the type of artist who's like, you are invested in lyrics when you're an Elliott Smith fan.
Right. But it's funny when you say about the lyrics with Elliott Smith, like I think of a songwriter like Bob Dylan who tells a story in his music as well and takes you on a journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I think of Elliott, his lyrics are a little more ambiguous. It's not always clear what the message is or what the story is behind it. But I think what I kind of appreciate about that compared to other artists is he's not necessarily painting the picture for me. He's allowing me to paint my own picture and just use like his thoughts and emotions behind that so I can kind of shape it into what I want. And again, although that's ambiguous and it may mean something different to somebody else, that's one of the things that I love the most about him. And I think it was one of the things that drew me in earliest, even as a teenager. And here I am as an adult, in my mid 40s, and I can still get those things out of Elliott Smith today. I can put it on, and whatever I'm dealing with as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a podcaster, as somebody dealing with the everyday struggle of just work and life balance and all that, he can speak to me in all those ways and at times lift me up, past it. Or at times just it gives me a chance to sit down and be emotional and feel it and let him speak to me while I'm, dealing with some of that and processing some of those emotions at that time.
And I like that you said he allows you to paint your own picture. That's, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now he passed very young, and we'll get to that story later, but I think he passed in 2003. So my guess is that you probably didn't have a chance to see him live.
That's correct. Yeah. And in 2003, I had already been to a few concerts. I'll be upfront with you. As a big music fan, I have actually surprisingly not seen a ton of artists live. It's just I've always been more of a almost like a quiet, reserved kind of guy. I don't like big crowds. I get a little anxious when I'm in a big crowd. So to see artists on a stadium show is really unnerving for me and gives me a lot of anxiety. So that's tough. I've been to stadium shows and they can be amazing. Radiohead's one of my favorite bands. I've seen them live in a big venue and it was awesome. But it takes a lot for me to muster up the courage to want to be in that kind of environment. But there are some acts that I've seen in smaller venues, a club, a bar, whatever it is. And that's kind of cool too. But with Elliott, as much as I was enamored with him, I don't remember him playing too many shows that was close enough for me. Because for me, with my situation and lack of resources, it had to be sort of close for me to be able to make it happen. So I never got to do that. And it's definitely a big regret of mine because when he passed, it affected me in a very meaningful way. And to think that I never got to see him live was definitely a big regret for me.
I find with all the music that I love, and I'm, us being big music lovers, there's still only a very small few where I feel like it'll personally devastate me when they pass.
Yeah.
And a couple of them have passed. And I think now that this is so depressing. As we're getting older, it's going to happen more and more where we're losing our favorites. Yep. So yeah, it's interesting that you say that he was that profound for you.
Yeah, I remember the day, well, I believe it was the day he passed, but I remember the day that I found out that he had passed, it like it was yesterday. It floored me. It was probably the first artist that I would say that really hit me the hardest. Like, I remember in the 90s, some of them, that I was really into, bands that I was really into, but I didn't have an emotional connection to. And Elliott was one of the first ones that I really felt a strong connection to. So to lose him, back to what I said before, it was like I lost somebody that was a companion in a lot of ways. And that was really hard for me.
Mine was Chris Cornell.
I get
that
it.
one was tough. Real tough. because I didn't picture or imagine him being in that kind of a place.
Right.
So yeah, that sucked.
Yeah.
Now,
It sure does.
the band Stranger Than Fiction. So he had 3 bands that he started in, I believe. That one. Then it turned into Harem Scarum and Heat Miser. Harem Scarum I thought was interesting because there is a Canadian band with the same name.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And they're like kind of like an AOR hard rock group. So I was like, this is so different than him. So different. But just a side piece there. I had to say that. Did you listen to his work with the bands?
I didn't. I retroactively went back and listened to specifically Heat Miser, and the reason I did that was back when Elliott had passed. I don't remember what year it was, but they released a compilation that was called New Moon, and it had a lot of. They weren't really demos, but there were a lot of music that he had recorded or that had worked on, and a lot of it was music that Heat Miser had. It was originally Heat Miser music that they had played. But it was just kind of the ones on New Moon were like stripped down and they were Elliott's, cover essentially of those, or just him, his telling of that song, even though a lot of them, because Elliott wasn't always the vocalist with Heat Miser, but he did do some vocal there, but these were his version of those songs, I believe. So listening to those made me go, because funny enough, when I discovered Elliott Smith, I didn't really do a deep dive. And let's face it, in the mid-90s, it wasn't as easy. It was the early internet ages. So for me to, search all that would have taken a lot of effort. So I wasn't really aware. Yeah. I wasn't really aware of a lot of what he did prior to his solo stuff. So with New Moon, it gave me a reason to seek that out. And I enjoyed some of what Heat Miser was, but even that, it's funny. I was so in love with the idea of Elliott Smith and his vocal style and everything he did as a solo artist that listening to Heat Miser didn't bring me the same feelings, the same emotions. Even when he supplied the vocal to a track, I didn't feel the connection. And it actually kind of depressed me because I'm like, this isn't my Elliott Smith. This isn't what I go to Elliott for. So I kind of moved away from it. And then when I had that itch, I would go directly back to the solo stuff, the stuff that impacted me back at that time, and I kind of stuck with that. And I know it was a long way to get around it, but yeah, that's my take on some of the stuff that he did prior.
It makes a lot of sense, and for a couple of reasons. Obviously, other people's influence on the music because there's more members, and they may not have been in the place they were mentally doing that music, and they were trying something different, and that can happen too, right?
Yep, absolutely.
The Oscars.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I kind of gather. He appears to have disliked fame. A lot of artists have disliked fame. It's always been difficult for me to reconcile that because there's always a part of me like, why did you get famous then? Like, why did you allow that to happen to yourself if you hate it so much? They say that, but they put themselves in that position by the choices they made.
Right.
What do you think about that kind of a situation when it happens to someone like Elliott?
Yeah, and it's really interesting with him because I think even if you watch the performance at the Oscars, he looks very uncomfortable. And I've watched many things with Elliott Smith where he looks very uncomfortable and not comfortable in his own skin and doesn't really. And when I think of an artist, and I think that he did not really seek out the fame, I believe that with him because I don't think that was the purpose of it. And I know it's almost popular for artists to say that I didn't want to be famous. I was all about the music and all that stuff. But with Elliott, I believe that that's true. But I do have a rough time reconciling the fact that if he got nominated for the Academy Award for the song in the film, you would think if he wasn't comfortable and didn't want that, he just wouldn't have come to the Oscars to perform it. They would have probably had somebody else perform it or something like that. Yeah. I don't know how they would have done it. But the point is, I also struggle with that because I wonder, did Elliott deep down maybe want some of that? I don't even want to say attention per se because I don't think he was an attention seeker, but maybe he wanted some of the recognition, some of the love, for what he's doing and what he's putting out there. So I wonder, and I'm trying to get in his head, obviously, and making assumptions, and I hate to do that, but I wonder if a part of him looked at that at that way as just a way of trying to feel like it's meaningful to other people, that he connected with other people, that, you know, that it was impactful in other people's lives. And I think maybe a part of him wanted that. But then at his core, standing on that stage with all those, you know, famous people, all those actors and all that, probably made him very uncomfortable, and maybe even in a lot of ways regretted the fact that he did that. I'm making a lot of assumptions. I remember maybe some of the things that were alluded to about him in the documentary Heaven Adores You. They talk a little bit about that. So I think it's probably true to say it might be a little bit of both, but there's probably a lot more to it than what even I know.
It's a double-edged sword because
100%.
I think that you get into it where you like, of course I want people to hear my songs. I want to interact with people and have them feel what I feel, or, you know, get their own feeling like you do about the music. It's all the other crap that comes with the fame. Because how else are you going to get music to people if you don't deal with record companies, television, like all that stuff? I think that's probably what it is. You want to have the people who listen to you, but to get there is the bullshit.
Exactly. Yes. And there's so much of it, and I think it's real easy to think that you can get there, have a way to, you know, deal with that side of things, the fame, the pressure, the struggles there with a record label, what's expected of you. And I'm sure you're probably not thinking that far ahead. You put music out, you're going to see what happens. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think what's important, and you have to try to balance that, is, you know, how it reaches an audience. And I think that's what you want. And you're going to have to take the rest with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless you stay really small, but then you're going to have a lot less people hearing your music. And then you got to accept that as well. Can you come to terms with that is the next thing. So.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned the documentary Heaven Adores You. Tell me about that show. I mean, I never watched the whole thing. I just watched a preview for it.
Yeah, so I watched it probably 2 or 3 years ago, so it's not fresh in my mind anymore. I actually wanted to rewatch it prior to coming on your show, and I just didn't have time to do so. But as documentaries go, I thought it was pretty well made. I'll be honest with you, as an Elliott Smith fan, I don't think it gave me what I wanted. Like, I don't feel like I got a whole lot of insight about, you know, his final days, some of, like, you know, the emotions, the stuff he was dealing with behind the curtain, if you will, all that. So I feel like as a documentary goes, I didn't get a whole lot of insight about him as a person and as an artist struggling with everything that's happening behind the scenes. But overall, I thought I at least got little pieces, little nuggets of info that were good to know and good to experience in a documentary form. But I've always taken documentaries with a grain of salt for those reasons. Obviously, whoever made it, that has their own narrative and the story they want to tell with it. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, that's what they're doing. And they want people to see their work as well. So, and I get all that, but yeah. Overall, I'll say it this way. I watched it one time. I haven't rewatched it since, even though I'm a big Elliott Smith fan. So I just don't think there was enough there for me.
That's fair. I briefly skimmed some things. I found out that he had a guitar that belonged to Kurt Cobain.
Yes. Well, I read about that. I don't know if that's true. I'm assuming it is. But I remember reading about that. It actually was after he had passed. I don't even remember when that was, but I had read about that on the internet and kind of blew my mind because I wasn't expecting any type of connection there with Kurt Cobain. But if it's true, it's quite interesting.
I could see the parallels between them, though.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Now, how many albums did he have?
So for solo work, he had a total of 6. The one that was released after his passing, From a Basement on the Hill, he was working on it right around, it was, I can't remember if it was complete. There might have been some tracks that they added to it that were not finished before he had passed, but I think most of it was completed. So yeah, 6 solo albums, in addition to obviously the bands that you'd mentioned earlier.
That's a lot of creativity.
Sure is. And they were in a relatively short period of time. I mean, you're talking, I think 95 to 2003 roughly. So kind of a short period of time to release so many albums.
His career literally spanned the decade. So
It
he's
did,
like
yeah.
the perfect person to talk to about the 90s.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are what are some songs that you would recommend that people might not know about?
So I have a lot of my favorites, and then obviously you could always say, if you want to point to singles, obviously they were singles for a reason, but I think you and I both are the same way. Like when I listen to an artist, I listen to the whole album, and I can find things to enjoy with every track. And I've always been an album person. That's what I do. I buy vinyl records to this day because I want the experience of the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
I want the whole story, whether it's a concept album or not. I want everything. So, but I will say, like, songs like early on, Southern Belle, which I believe was on his self-titled album, which was the second album. That's a good track. Gives you a little bit of that taste of the early Elliott Smith, probably the first. You could take the first two albums. I think Southern Belle kind of wraps that up pretty nicely for you. But then my favorite album of his, which is Either Or, which is his third album, songs Between the Bars, which played in Good Will Hunting, by the way. Angelus is a great song. Then you move on to songs like Waltz Number 2, which was on the next album called XO. There's a great song that was not a single called Oh Well, Okay. That's a fantastic song. Everybody Cares, Everybody Understands. And then Figure 8 was, I would almost say, maybe his most accessible album, because it was dialed up a little bit. It was a little more musical. There was a lot more instrumentals going behind him. It was a little more upbeat, I will say. So like a song like Son of Sam is almost more like a alt rock type song. I think most people, I think it would have been a good like radio single if it got play on top 40. It unfortunately never really did, but that was probably one I think most people would enjoy. Better Be Quiet Now, and then his last album, King's Crossing, and a song called Twilight, which if you're in the right mood can probably bring you to tears. It's a gorgeous little song. It actually did play in a TV show, I believe. Don't quote me, but I think it might have played in the OC, believe it or not. Maybe in like one of their last couple seasons, which was cool to me because you didn't get to hear a lot of Elliott Smith on TV. But I believe it played on that series. It was one of those type of series that my wife was into, and I watched with her during that time. But it definitely popped me when Elliott Smith came on that TV show. So those are that was quite a few songs I threw out, but I would definitely say to check out any of those just to get a taste of what Elliott Smith's all about.
That was perfect. That's great recommendations, especially because then I know kind of where to start with what I like in music,
Yeah, and I think it covers like his whole career as a solo artist from the early stuff until you get more to, the more accessible stuff towards the last couple albums.
I'll fake it through the day with some help from Johnny Walker Red. Send the poison rain down the drain to put bad thoughts in my head. The 2 tickets torn in half and lot, and nothing to do. Do you miss me? Miss misery like you say you do. Men in the park read the lines in my hand, told me I'm strong, hardly ever wrong. I said, man, you mean you had plans for both of us that involved a trip out of town.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hello, listeners. It has been such an experience doing this show for the last 5+ years, but it gets expensive. If you didn't know, there's a lot of costs that go into making a podcast. That's why we have our Patreon page, patreon.com/dope nostalgia. That's where you can go and subscribe, get all the extra details, bonus videos, and early podcast release for as little as $1 a month. Please subscribe today and help support one of your favorite podcasts.
I'm Dale Baker of Sixpence None the Richer, and you are listening to the Dope Nostalgia Podcast.
Hey there, welcome to Rewind Rewatch. I am the oldest sibling, Andreen.
And I'm her brother, Joel. And we are siblings that decided to make a podcast about the thing that we love, 90s movies.
Yes. I mean, we love everything 90s anyway. But for this podcast, what we want to do is basically look at 90s movies and then discuss whether or not they've aged well, based on today's standards.
So we'll think about the themes, some of our favorite quotes, and at the end, we will rate these movies on a scale from 1 to 5, rewinds, based on how likely it is for us to rewatch them again.
How do you think we'll rate your favorite 90s movies? You gotta listen in to find out.
There's just a word, and there's no mistaking it word. No way of faking it word.
Hello, Joe. What do you know?
There's just one taste for that real attraction word, for the satisfaction word. Just for the feeling, just for the taste, one calorie, just you know, the moment you find it, just one with something behind it. This one's got a real good taste, yeah. There's just one.
All right, let's sample a bottle. And I'll make it two. One for you and one for me.
Just for the taste.
Now we get warm.
Diet Coke.
Did Elliott Smith have any controversies?
Really, to me, the only controversy that I really have noticed with him was the passing, was his death.
The
More than
surroundings.
anything. Yeah, everything, the reports of what happened. There's some suspicion around how it happened, and how it actually happened, and who and by whose hands. So there's a lot there. I don't want to go. Obviously your people probably don't want to hear about any of that stuff, so I'm not going to go into those details. If someone's interested, they can obviously go read on it. But that's another thing that I struggle with, because I know he was mentally not in a great place. But I also remember, whether it be in the documentary, and I think I did read up on some of him as well, but there was reports from some people that Elliott was in a pretty good place in 2003, or 2002, 2003, right before the passing, and before that, while he was recording that record. And that's something, as not only as a fan, but somebody, as I've described in this episode about how much he meant to me, that's rough for me, because my mind starts going places like, what really happened, and is it more of a tragedy than I really think? And it's tough. So that's probably the only controversy I've ever really, read or seen about Elliott. For the most part, I think he was universally liked by most people that in his circle, and even like in the music industry, I think he's pretty respected as well, and has played a pretty good influence, I think, on a lot of artists as well.
Well, I think supporting what you were saying about him being in a good place at that time would be the fact that his toxicology came back, where he wasn't on anything
right
when he passed.
Right. And that's another thing where, knowing that there was some substance abuse with Elliott at times, to know that he was clean at that time is another thing I really struggle with. And it seems like all signs are pointing to him being a good place in life. So it's hard for me to accept, what happened at the end. So I just don't know.
Can you think of some artists that were influenced by him, that it's either apparent that they were, or maybe they've actually stated that Elliott Smith, they were fans?
Yeah, I know there's some that have stated it. I think probably a big one that has come out and stated it is Frank Ocean. I think he's probably one of the big ones. He's stated it pretty clearly and actually has covered Elliott's work. But I remember when I heard the artist Badly Drawn Boy from England, I remember thinking, like, when I first heard his music, I'm like, oh my God, like he could be, I hate to say it, but he could be like my new Elliott Smith, right? And I did listen to some Badly Drawn Boy, and I like his music. He didn't take me places emotionally like Elliott did, but great artist. But I I don't think he's ever come out and said that Elliott was an influence, but I hear it in his music for sure. I know another artist that I've always enjoyed, Connor Oberst, independent artist from the same state that Elliott was born in, Nebraska. Connor Oberst, who was part of the band Bright Eyes, along with some other bands that he's been part of. I hear a lot of similarities in his work as well, and his songwriting. He's one of the more accomplished songwriters, I think, of the last probably 20 years or so. So I think I hear some there, but even more contemporary artists like Men I Trust, Clairo, Phoebe Bridgers. I think I feel and hear a little bit of Elliott in all these acts. I think there's definitely some influence there.
Well, you mentioned there was a cover. Have you heard any other covers of his work?
Yeah, I don't remember which song, but I know Billie Eilish did one, which I thought was pretty good.
Wow.
I just can't remember which one it was, but I thought she did a great job. I know Frank Ocean, like I said, has covered some. And there's two artists I saw covered, but I actually never got a chance to listen to them. But Julian Baker and the band Fleet Foxes also covered some of Elliott's work as well.
Wow. You know, I'm so stuck in the 90s. A lot of those names I don't know. But some of them I'm like, oh, yeah, for sure. Is there anything about him or his work that you didn't like or didn't appeal to you?
No, so I think it's probably been pretty clear by everything I've said that no, I mean, he's easily one of the most important artists that has ever been in my life. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Like everything about him, even when back to what I laid out for you earlier, when someone says to me, you know, why do you listen to Elliott Smith? Is this not depressing to you? Like I can't always tell people or explain to people and articulate what he means to me. Like just Naomi, just his voice. Like I hear his voice and it instantly warms my heart. So regardless of what the song is, what the message is behind it, what the themes are, how it sounds, it comforts me. So yeah, I can't think of a single negative thing. I could probably, if I needed to, I could probably nitpick and say his first two albums I don't like as much as his work after that. Okay, because they're a little more raw. They're a little more samey. Like the first two albums, a lot of the tracks sound very similar. So if I had to nitpick, I could say that. But other than that, that's really just a nitpick because I still enjoy everything
trivial.
about his work. Exactly.
And we like to keep things light and positive, but I always want to know, was there something that you're like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, for the most part, there was just no missteps other than like maybe his work that he did with bands prior to going solo. They just, like I said earlier, didn't really appeal to me as much as his solo stuff.
What would you like to say about him to wrap up your thoughts on him and his career?
So I guess I'll do it this way, and it outlines some of the things I've already said, but I remember like when you sent me, some of the ideas of some of the things you ask, and I remember the one thing was, my favorite qualities about them, and I started thinking about that. And I tried to unpack what it is about him that I love so much. So I'm gonna lay that out for you now. So his insecurities appeal to me because I know I can relate to that. I know what that's like. I've been an insecure person, throughout my life at different stages. So I get that and I can relate to him. When it comes to what he does from a sound, from his vocals, I love the soft, angelic quality of his vocals. And again, it just sounds so appealing to me, and I feel like he's speaking directly to me, and it's just amazing. I think that he has beautiful melodies in his work. He also, one thing about him, and I don't know how to describe this because I love music, but I can't always like define music for you or talk about some of the technical stuff. But there's something interesting about his musical arrangements. It's very unique and almost unconventional in his songwriting style. Like, he doesn't write hooks and bridges and choruses in the traditional way compared to most music. And somehow, even though he doesn't, it effectively ties everything all together in his music all the same. So that's something I've always found fascinating with him, because I can't quite figure out how he does it. But like I said, the arrangements and the composition of his music is very unique to him. and very identifiable. And then also, like I said earlier, how his struggles and his raw emotions in his lyrics have always spoken to me. And no matter what my emotion is, I find something in every one of his songs, in every one of his lyrics that can speak to me, regardless of my, state of mind or where I am in life. I always find something to take out of it.
I think for those who don't know of Elliott Smith, you've just given them so many reasons to check out his career.
I hope so.
And for those who are fans of his, they're going to really appreciate how you represented him today. So
I hope
thank
so.
you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to talk about, like I said, one of my favorite artists, one of the most important ones to me. It's really interesting because I have not yet covered Elliott in long form on my show. I did represent him on one of my episodes. We did a tier list of albums from 1995, and I'm sorry, no, that's not right. 97.
Okay.
Because I did Either Or. I highlighted Either Or a little bit, and but in long form, I haven't really had a chance to sit down and talk about Elliott Smith, and I think part of it's because I haven't found a whole lot of people in my circle that are fans of his as well. And I don't want to do it solo. I want to do it with somebody. So I'm sure I'll get there. Just haven't yet. So to actually have a chance to not only, come on your show finally, because like you said earlier, I like to promote what you do. I love your show. I love the singing of the 90s songs. I loved your episode. It is, and it's so much fun. I love it so much. So I'm really enjoying that. Your episode on Lilith Fair really hooked me because I've always enjoyed the female movement of the mid 90s. I think that is an impactful part of music as well that kind of pushed artists forward of both genders, especially females, and put the spotlight on them, which they deserve. Because I'm a big proponent of female fronted bands, so it's important to me. So I love that episode as well. So it was awesome to get to come to your show and then to talk about Elliott Smith like this was such a treat for me because, as you can tell, I can geek out about him. He means a lot to me.
I'm really honored that you like the show that much too. So thank you for that. I don't want you to go quite yet because I kind of wanted to pick your brain on a few other 90s musically related topics.
Please.
Didn't see this coming, but
I love it.
I'm actually going to do non-music stuff too here, but I wanted to know, question you've probably heard me ask a lot of people. Were you a member of Columbia House Music Club? Did you get scammed? Did you do it?
I did. I don't remember because I was a kid, so I don't remember if I filled out my information or if I don't know who's I put. But I remember the whole Columbia House thing. I totally did it, and I feel like I'm one of those people that still owes Columbia House money.
I think I've talked to one person who actually fulfilled the membership requirements. I was you are such a good person.
Yeah, about it.
90s crushes. Who were they?
Oh boy.
Celebrity crushes, of course.
Yeah. So quite honestly, the one that, because there was probably plenty of them that I can't even remember now, but the one that I will always remember and I think about to this day was Pamela Anderson. I was a big Baywatch kid. Like as a teenager, I couldn't get enough, but Pam was my girl. Like I was enamored by her. And as a wrestling fan, she was at the WWF for two of their big events in 95. She was at the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And as a Baywatch fan, someone who was so much crushing on Pam Anderson and wrestling fan, I was in my glory. It was amazing.
No kidding. That's awesome.
Yep.
Now you mentioned you collect vinyl.
Yes.
How many vinyls do you think you have approximately?
So for a while I stopped collecting and I don't remember why that was, but I was in and out of it, but now I've really gotten serious again. So right now it's pretty modest, but I would probably say 300-400, something like that.
That's modest.
I think it is.
That's pretty awesome. I love that. I've only started, so I've just started collecting the ones I grew up on.
Right.
Those are the most important to me that I get my hands on those. And that is a very pricey habit. So
it is. It very much is. That's part of the reason why I kind of put it on pause for a while.
But it's so fun. I like going digging. Like to spend an afternoon going digging through it and then you find a gem of something you're like, oh, It's a good feeling.
I have the same addiction to VHS, by the way, which is maybe even worse, but they're cheaper.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
True. I still have a few, but not many.
My collection's starting to grow on that too, so it's fun.
When did you discover the internet?
Probably 98, 99, because I remember, like, as a big wrestling fan, that started, like, they started utilizing the internet a lot with the, like, WCW and WWF were having their war and going back and forth. So there was a lot of this, like, there was, like, you could call, like, these hotlines and get, like, dirt on the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. But I remember, like, the internet was like, go on there and check out stuff to try to find out who's going to jump to the other company next. So that was probably my earliest discovery of what the internet could do.
Yeah. Yeah. I got in pretty early myself. It was like mid 90s. Mid 90s.
Yeah,
I had already become a pirate.
You had to jump on me.
I already became a pirate by the late 90s.
Nice.
Lars sued me. No. I'm in Canada, so he couldn't sue me. Anyway,
That's right.
Video games and consoles. What was your go-to console?
My go-to was probably the original NES, because although I had a Genesis and I liked it, and eventually I think I had Super Nintendo. I can't remember because my cousin and I had a habit of, like, we would, like, let each other borrow the consoles. So I can't remember if that was mine or his or vice versa. But,
Right.
but yeah, my go-to is probably NES, because that was like that was like a discovery. Because, before that we had the Atari, which was what it was. But Nintendo blew my mind. And then when you were getting games like Mike Tyson's Knockout and the Nightmare on Elm Street game and the Friday the 13th game and all that stuff, like, I was kind of Zelda. I was kind of into Zelda for a while, but, like, I was geeking out over this. So I played that thing for a long time. Like, everyone, when they were getting all the newer stuff, I was still playing my NES because I couldn't get enough of it.
The only console I've ever owned were all NES. All of them.
Nice.
The only one I never got was the GameCube, or I think I'm missing another one. Anyway,
Wii?
no.
Did you get the Wii? No Wii?
I did get the Wii. I got the Wii U
Oh, wow.
as well, which was kind of a waste of time for them, but
Yeah.
we skipped past that, and the Switch is awesome.
Yes, it is.
Your favorite magazines of the 90s?
Yeah, so in addition to the WWF magazine, because, again, I was a huge 90s wrestling fan, but the one that I loved the most, and I actually had to seek out some editions of it from my youth because it brought back such great memories, but the Cracked magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Cracked magazine, and they released a couple of these, what was called Monster Party editions, and I had to seek out, because I had them, and unfortunately my mom got rid of them all, but I had a bunch of the Monster Party editions, and the one for Freddy's Dead was one of my favorite copies, because the comic that was in the magazine was better than the movie, because Freddy's Dead is dog shit. Sorry to anybody that likes that movie, but it's awful. But the comic strip that's in that magazine is incredible. They should have that should have been the content for that final movie instead of the movie itself. So I had to seek that out on eBay, and I paid kind of a pretty penny for it, but it's in pretty good shape. So yeah, Cracked magazine, and then their other editions definitely was my, like, go-to magazine in the 90s.
Yeah, it was Cracked kind of like another version of Mad Magazine, but it's not.
Yes.
It's like a competitor.
I can't remember if it was a competitor or if it was an offshoot of the same what am I trying to say? Publication. I think it might have been an offshoot of it, but don't quote me on that. It could have been a competitor, but I think it was an offshoot.
Of Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains, which was your personal favorite?
So do you want my answer then or now?
Then and now. Let's do that.
Okay. So as a kid, I actually told the story on my show, but as a kid, I did not like Nirvana at all, like at all. Okay.
Me neither. Yeah.
My band in the 90s was Pearl Jam. Like, I loved Eddie Vedder, and I still love him to this day. I respect the shit out of that band for so many reasons. But it's funny. I always really liked what Alice in Chains did, and I liked that they were a little different. They had a little bit more of that heavy metal side to them that I kind of dug.
Very melodic.
It's very melodic, yeah. So actually today it's Alice in Chains. I still like Pearl Jam, but Alice in Chains is kind of, evolved into being my favorite of that group of, Seattle rock bands from the 90s.
Nice. Now, you growing up in the States, you had MTV. What part of the U.S. are you in?
I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm on the East Coast.
Nice.
Yep.
Any favorite MTV shows?
Beavis and Butthead, if I'm being honest. Like, I loved MTV for the music videos, but like in the 90s, I didn't really like care for the TV programs. I just didn't get into it. So, but Beavis and Butthead, yeah, I grew up on it, so I dug it. I never missed an episode, if I'm being honest.
Did they play Ren and Stimpy on MTV?
So I think it started on MTV very early, and then it somehow, at least in the States, transitioned to Nickelodeon. I don't remember when
I thought it might be
happened.
Nickelodeon.
Yeah, so like I said, but I think the first couple episodes were on MTV. I think it was before it was even established as a series.
Yeah, that makes sense. We only had it on Much Music.
Okay.
So that's where I kind of related it to MTV, but because most things that were on MTV, if they were on in Canada, it was on Much.
Gotcha.
Okay, I don't know how you feel about boy bands, but Backstreet versus NSYNC.
Okay. Not a big boy band guy. I like girl groups. I'm a big fan of Spice Girls, but
Nice.
yeah, but boy bands never really appealed to me. But if I had to pick, I'd probably lean towards Backstreet Boys.
Fair.
There's a little bit more of that 90s style to them, I think, compared to NSYNC. They felt like the new millennium.
Everyone in that group could sing too.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
90s toy.
Okay, so I would probably say it has to be for me, and I think these probably started in the 80s because of the cartoon, but I remember them still being pretty prevalent in early 90s, was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures.
Yeah.
Because the movie obviously came out in 1990. So I was like, I didn't care about anything else. You didn't have to get me the biggest toys, the most popular toys, especially Christmas or on birthdays. If I saw that action figure container, because it was the cardboard and then it was the bump out where the action figure, the bubble, you always knew when you were getting that as a present. When I saw those, it was over. I was down. I was so into it. So yeah, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures, they were everything to me.
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, it's been so much fun. I'm really glad that you shared this time with me today.
Thank you. It's been a blast for me.
We'll have to do it again.
We certainly should. I'd love to bring you on my show as well.
Yes, pick my brain about something cool 90s like. I love it.
Nice. That would be awesome.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
You as well. It was great meeting you, and thank you so much. I had so much fun.
Good. Let's do it again.
Definitely.
Okay, take care.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
You can follow Dope Nostalgia on Instagram at dope_nostalgia and YouTube at Dope Nostalgia Podcast. Call and leave a message on our voicemail toll free. The number is 1-888-741-9192.
This podcast is licensed by SOCAN because we believe that artists should be paid for their work. Hey friends. I kind of miss getting those messages on my answering machine like we used to back in the day. What I'd really love is to hear from you, the listeners of Dope Nostalgia. This is your chance to be on the show, giving feedback, telling us what you love, what you hate, and who you'd like to see more of. Call us at our new toll-free number, 1-888-741-9192. Leave us some feedback. Your message could be played on the show. So give us a call, 1-888-741-9192. Toll free.